Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Gaurav, and thank you, Red Lantern Analytica, for giving me the platform. It's really it's been long that India has been suffering because of China's hydrological plans and policies. So this is an excellent time to have this webinar. I'd quickly like to share content. If I could just share my slides, it would be great. I'll try to. I hope this is showing up on your screen. So I'm going to speak briefly, and I hope I don't spill into the others' time. I will speak on China's hydropower projects and the impacts on India so far. The relationship between India and China, the two leaders of the so-called Asian century, has always been a complex one. It's generally called as a mix of cooperation and conflict. But 2020 did away the inclinations towards cooperation as Chinese aggression at the borders revealed the true conflictual nature of the relationship. Now, in addition, differences in approaches to non-traditional security challenges are also becoming the reason for this relationship becoming more conflictual. An important and additional arena for this conflict is that of water. Even though India and China inked a memorandum of understanding in June 2018 to share hydrological data or information, China has been using ecological frontiers such as the Tibetan Plateau and transboundary rivers such as the Brahmaputra as political tools. Now, during in 2017, during the 73-day long Doklam standoff, China refused to share hydrological data with India, despite the fact that the two sides have agreements regarding sharing of hydrological data. China even charges India an annual fee of close to rupees 1 crore for the data. Now, sharing of hydrological data is extremely important for India's northeastern states. In general, Beijing provides India with the data from three particular stations. And these three hydrological stations are at Nugesha, Yangtsung, and Nungxia, which lie on the mainstream of the Brahmaputra River, and from the station at Tsada for the Satluj River. However, in 2017, China cited technical difficulties for its inability to provide India with the data. Certain news reports the data because the hydrological data gathering sites were washed away due to the floods. Some other reports stated that China could not share the data with India due to upgradation of data collection stations in Tibet. Of course, there's a huge gap between both these reasons. The reason behind China's refusal to share hydrological data is more political in nature. In 2017, when China said that it cannot share this particular data, it was unable to share this data with India. The same data was received by Bangladesh. Mufazzal Hussain, who was a member of the Joint Rivers Commission of Bangladesh, he was quoted as saying that we have been receiving such data from the three hydrological stations in Tibet since 2002. The hydrological stations, which China claimed were being upgraded or were washed away due to floods, somehow they had been able to provide hydrological data to Bangladesh, but could not provide the same data to India. Keeping in line with the existing agreements between India and China on data sharing, India had paid for the data in advance, but there's no mention of the refund of the advance paid in any primary or secondary resources which I've studied so far. Now, this is just one example from recent history. Other um, other examples include the flash floods which wreaked havoc in Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh between 2000 and 2005 and were linked to unannounced releases of um, one second, there's some technological problem at my end. Sorry, I'll just take 2 seconds. Sorry. So the other examples were these examples from Himachal Pradesh and Arunachal Pradesh between 2000 and 2005 when there was an unannounced release of water from rain swollen Chinese dams and barrels which were based on the recently, as has been pointed out. What had happened in 2017 was that the Siang River, or the Yarlung Sangpo, which later on becomes the Brahmaputra, um, It reported blackening of water. It reported high turbidity and iron levels, so much so that fishes died and the river was deemed too polluted. Flows down to the Tibetan Plateau into Arunachal Pradesh, which and it joins the Lohit and Dibang downstream in order to become the Brahmaputra. There were multiple analyses for the blackening of the river, and one of these analyses even stated that the cause was an earthquake in Tibet. But the fact remains that there was human made destruction in China. Satellite imagery from December 2017 shows the Brahmaputra River disappearing into a 900 meters long tunnel in China and polymer resin adhesives being sprayed all around the area by China. Polymer resin adhesives act as a dust suppressant and are used for large construction projects, but are never used near water since the resin adhesives are harmful to animal and human life. Now, this was the reason behind the crisis in the Siang River downstream. However, China's state-run Global Times declared that Arunachal Pradesh is a part of China. There's no question of China polluting its own rivers. In this case, China not only used the river for its own selfish interests, but actually created hazardous situations for human life and ecology. And this pronouncement through the Global Times, it just reiterated, China's claim over Arunachal Pradesh, even though the issue at hand was of river water sharing and not of, territorial disputes per se. In each and every instance, water becomes a tool of China's aggressive politics. On the issue of hydrological data, in any case, what is received from China does not detail the place and the time of recording, thereby limiting India's or Bangladesh's scope for detecting any upstream diversion. Now, let's cut to 2020, 2021. In December 2020, it was reported that China plans to build this hydropower project on the Brahmaputra, and of course, this has triggered concerns in both India and in Bangladesh. China's plans for dams along Tibetan waterways are well documented. These are central to national economic and energy development priorities. The state run Communist Youth Daily, it boasted of the irrigation benefits which will be brought by this Siapuchu project. And the state council, it talked about boosting, which is known as Tibet's breadbasket. Further, as one of China's most impoverished regions, improving flood control and supporting electricity production in Tibet, it forms a central part of Xi Jinping's anti-poverty legacy. This is there on one hand, but then there are vulnerable communities outside China's borders, and these communities have become increasingly concerned, and with good reason. Safeguard its own interests, India has announced its own plans to construct a multipurpose reservoir in Arunachal Pradesh to offset the impact of the dam on the Chinese side. The question here is, why is China's weaponization of water so worrisome? The reason as to why China's weaponization of water is so worrisome comes from this quote from Sun Tzu, who had compared water to the army. He quote, the nature of water is such that it avoids heights and hastens to the lowlands. When a dam is broken, the water cascades with irresistible force. Now, the shape of an army resembles water. Take advantage of the enemy's unpreparedness, attack him when he does not expect it, avoid his strength, and strike his emptiness. Like water, no one can oppose you. So, the potency of water as a weapon was clearly stated a long time ago in China. Over the years, China has made huge investments in building dams. It has avoided entering into any water sharing agreement with downstream countries like India. China completed the Zhangmu Dam, which has about 510 megawatt capacity, which was built on the upper reaches of the Brahmaputra in 2010. Three more dams, one at Taku, which is of 640 megawatts, one at Tiacha, which is of 320 megawatts, and at Chieshu are currently under construction. The work on Zam hydropower station, which will be the largest dam on Brahmaputra, commenced in 2015. Um, Earlier this year, a US government funded study showed that a series of new dams are being river, and this had worsened the drought situation in the downstream countries. Of course, China disputed the findings. Fact stands that in 2017, Vietnam pleaded with China to release water from the Yunnan Dam into the Mekong River. In this instance, China complied, and waters flowed into Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar, and Thailand and Vietnam. However, the drought had clearly damaged some 140,000 hectares of rice in the Mekong Delta, and people faced water shortages. Now, Chinese media has been reporting that the country is planning to implement this um, beautiful hydropower exploitation in the downstream Yarlung Sangpo or the Brahmaputra or the Siang as we know it. Um, this, but naturally, is worrisome for India and Bangladesh. Why? China has not been forthright about its construction of dams and hardly gives any information on the projects or its long term plans. A case in point is from 2010, when, after several years of denial, Beijing finally admitted that it's building the Zangmo Dam on the Brahmaputra. The dams built by China are large enough to be turned into storage dams, which will allow it to manipulate water resources freely for flood control or for irrigation. Now, in such a scenario, China can potentially deprive India of water during the dry season or flood the way Assam got flooded in 2017. Energy centric geopolitical tensions, these projects have a cascading impact on the environment. Um, this impact on the environment comes from this dam within China itself, which is the Three Gorges Dam, which is the world's largest hydroelectric dam, which was built in 2003 to block the Yangtze River. And there was an earthquake because of the kind of ecological destruction that had happened during the construction. The Brahmaputra flows through rugged Himalayan topography, which is ecologically vulnerable, it's seismically active, and the last major earthquake in the region was not too long ago in 2015 in Nepal, causing 9,000 deaths, massive infrastructural damage. The region is highly vulnerable to earthquakes, and the next one potentially could take place anytime. A large number of hydropower plants based on the run of the river system used to generate electricity will definitely have repercussions. Interrupting the natural flow of water to generate energy will have a devastating impact, which then becomes a major contributing factor to earthquakes and landslides. Dams constructed in the region can cause landslides or glacial slides, as well as cause, dam-induced earthquakes. The deforestation to create these dams also acts as a contributing force. So, as I stated earlier, to safeguard itself, India is just planning a multi-purpose 10,000 megawatt hydropower project in Arunachal Pradesh. But in addition to this, what could India possibly do? In the absence of international agreements binding China to transboundary river water sharing, India's options are very limited. However, it's time that India starts asset. And while renegotiating treaties on hydrological data sharing, India at least puts forth a clause for payment post receipt of data. India also needs to point out the necessity of the data having important specifications such as time, date, and place of recording. Beyond all of these, India needs to strengthen its own satellite systems, enabling it to monitor upstream river conditions, which will reduce the reliance on China, which clearly is using the water as a geopolitical tool for arm twisting. Satellite imagery of China destroying ecological habitats needs to be a part of India's narrative at the highest levels of climate talks. China's false narratives based on information concealment or falsehoods, which are created after much planning, these are all part of psychological warfare, and India needs to take cognizance of this. Um, and therefore, India needs to actually showcase facts to the international community as to how big a threat Chinese construction activities can actually be to humankind. With that, I come to the end, and thank you so much